I'd like to call the meeting to order at 7:04. Roll call, please, Sandy.
Yes, the meeting of Wednesday. February 21st, 2018, we have Jim Smith, Agent Dave Pichette, Kenny Baptiste, Chair, Sandy Slavin, Joe Liggett, Mary Taggart, and Elisa Hurd. Better?
Very good. Excellent.
We're getting it.
I've always had a tough time pronouncing her first name, and I've only known her for 10 years, so this is tough.
I haven't known her that long, and I still have trouble. Okay, thank you. I just want to inform everybody that this is being recorded for television. And first on the agenda we're going to do is Mass Highway Department of Transportation, care of Venice Hangen, oh, I'm murdering this, Brusson, Inc.
3 times fast.
See that? First on the list, and you don't even have to wait all night.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Mike Clements. I'm with the District 5 Mascot Office, Highway Division over in London. With me tonight is Ross Moreau and Gene Crouch from VHB. These are the shortened version. VHB works. It's called Vanessa Hengen and Russell.
Well, that was close.
We're here tonight to discuss the Route 628 redevelopment project. We had a public meeting last Thursday. Discussed it with the townspeople. We're here tonight to discuss the wetland issues that are associated with the project.
Okay, David will highlight, and then I'll
Okay.
let you have the floor and make the speech. And okay, David, when you're ready.
Okay, again, this is a mass highway project for Route 6 and 28 in East Wareham, and the project involves the reconstruction of Cranberry Highway from the bypass to a point approximately 900 feet east of Red Brook Road. Some of the work to this project is in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland, within wetland, inland bank, riverfront area, and partially within a coastal flood zone. The work would involve the reconstruction and improvements of approximately 1.67 miles of road. And the work would involve the reconstruction of stormwater drainage systems along this stretch of Cranberry Highway. There'll be a median, sidewalks, and bike lanes that will also be installed as part of the project. Stormwater improvements involve replacing existing catch basins with deep sump catch basins and several constructed wetlands to serve as stormwater treatment areas. 2 of the constructed wetlands are adjacent to Dick's Pond. These 2 basins would have overflows that would ultimately go into Dick's Pond. Another constructed wetland area is on the property across from where Cartway and Dunkin' Donuts is. This is where the brook from Dick's Pond runs under Route 6 and then is piped underground under the railroad tracks and ultimately goes out into Muddy Cove. This brook, known as Gibbs Brook, is also a herring run. The plan is to construct a wetland on the property adjacent to the tire warehouse, and again, this is across roughly from Dunkin' Donuts. Stormwater from the highway would be directed into this detention basin, and any overflow would be discharged through a water control structure into the pipe that carries the stream under this property. And the intent is to eliminate current direct discharges of stormwater into the brook and other wetland resource areas. The Mass Division of Marine Fisheries has reviewed the project and is recommending time of year restriction on certain work relating to the installation of the new head wall at Gibbs Brook, and the time of year restrictions they're talking about are from March 15th to June 30th, and again from September 1st to November 15th, and again this is to protect the herring run. They also recommend erosion control along the southern shore of Dick's Pond during the spring time of year restriction. The harbor master has also reviewed the project, and he has no objections to what's proposed. We do have a DEP file number for this project as well, and so at this point, I'll turn it over to the consultant to go over anything further he wants to add and to get into any questions that people have.
There you go.
I'll let the consultants handle the presentation from here. They're far more knowledgeable than I, the intricacies of the project. I will say this is an $18.3 million job. It's scheduled to start in the spring of 2019. Hope to move forward. It should be a safety improvement for the corridor, and really, hopefully, good job. Be a good job to get moving forward. Hey guys.
Hi everyone, I'm Ross Morrow. I'll do a quick overview of what we have so far. We have this slide over here, as Dave mentioned. We start just before the existing median ends and the road comes together, 1.7 miles down past Red Brook Road. Here's an overview, overlaid on an aerial, helps to get yourself oriented. We have proposed an all-new closed drainage system, deep sump catch basins with, for the most part, reinforced concrete pipe. There is some ductile iron where pipes are shallow. There are a few points in this roadway where either utility conflicts or just tight invert elevations requires to be shallow. Here's our first discharge point. We are meeting the same location as the existing outlet right now. Water coming down the hill towards our project is caught in catch basins and tied directly into the pipe that goes underneath the highway. Water coming from the east inside our project, we're catching in catch basins and putting to the head wall that we'll be reconstructing as part of this project. Around halfway between Home Depot and Cinema Drive is the high point, where you can see closed drainage system heading down to discharge point 1, and in the other direction to the east, we have a closed drainage system heading to the BMP, our first BMP, right at Dick's Pond. This will not only capture and treat water before it gets to the low point, but it'll also reduce the amount of water that gets to the low point where we have a known flooding issue right now. This Dick's Pond outlet will be reconstructed. We are planning to raise the road by about a foot at the low point in order to get a better drainage elevation outlet. Dick's Pond is about 6 1/4 as far as elevation goes, and the roadway, we'll be raising it to about 9 at the gutters, so there's not a lot of space there to get water through the pipes, but we'll be able to pick up a foot compared to the existing condition now. This is a very small area here that does not go into one of these 2 BMP constructed wetlands. As we move to the east, here's another constructed wetland. That'll pick up all the way from basically Waterwiz, which is the next high point. So all that drainage will come down to this constructed wetland. Next to that, Gene will get into a little more detail, but that's our wetland mitigation area. There are a few wetland impacts right by Dick's Pond outlet. At Waterwiz, the roadway starts pitching back down, and this is the very large BMP stormwater basin. This is what feeds it. So from approximately Waterwiz all the way through past Main Ave, all comes back to a large proposed constructed wetland. The basin itself is one basin, however, we have 2 separated forebays, one treating the water collected from the west of it, and one treating the water collected from the east. And that, as Dave mentioned, there's an outlet control structure that'll be in the basin and then tied into the existing pipe that runs Gibbs Brook. We will construct a new manhole structure on top of the pipe. The pipe will stay in place intact, and the manhole structure will have a pipe connecting that to the outlet control structure. The rest of the drainage after approximately this location drains to an existing outlet that is currently in place. We will reconstruct the head wall just for safety purposes to bring it up to current standards, and that will capture the remainder of the project in the closed drainage system. I'm going to turn it over to Gene, who will speak a little bit more about the details.
Okay. We've obviously evaluated the right-of-way. This is a map, the natural heritage map for the right-of-way. When this project started many, many years ago, we actually had a polygon encompassed into the roadway system. The most recent mapping that was prepared by Natural Heritage has pulled those polygons away from the road, and so we're no longer in a polygon with the project. But this just verifies that the limits of the polygon got moved from crossing the road to being just north of the road. It was mentioned earlier that the project is within coastal floodplain. The blue area represents the 100-year floodplain that extends up from coastal waters into the site. And so here's our project, and it crosses in this location at the eastern end, western end, and then kind of through the central portion of it. The orange areas, that's the 500-year floodplain, and that's not really jurisdictional. It's just always shown on FEMA mapping. So this is just for, I did not include this. I've got some, the actual plan set that we colored up coming up. I did not include the floodplain mapping because it's all over the place, and it was just going to take me hours to try to color that in, so I apologize, but I figured this might be good enough. So this is another view, a little bit larger. So these green areas represent the wetlands, the blue areas represent open water. So we've got 3 wetland areas, actually 4 wetland areas in this location, Dick's Pond, and adjacent wetlands associated with that. Gibbs Brook, which is actually an outlet from Diggs Pond. Diggs Pond is kind of up in the back over here, and it drains out in this direction and out to Muddy Cove. And then, as mentioned, we've got an outlet structure over in here, which goes into an existing natural depression on the side of the road. We're not proposing to alter that depression in any way. It's a very well vegetated basin currently, and provides tremendous storage and filtration the way it is now. These are the project plans, and sort of zooming into them, these are the wetland areas. Our work limits are here, and then from the road is being either micro-milled for construction, or in some cases where there's for sidewalks and so forth, it'll be a full depth reconstruction where the bed is reconstructed to support the new pavement. So we've got a stream coming through, as Ross mentioned, comes through and out at this location. There's an existing stormwater discharge at this location. We're going to be reconstructing that, so there'll be a new outlet in basically the same location to take on the outlet flow from the new catch basin system. There's a stream that comes in the sort of the median area. It ties into that pipe and then also outlets through here. This is obviously in the area, but not being affected. We're not really touching any of these wetlands, so we'll have no impact on them. The next wetland down the road is this one we've identified as wetland 4. We're staying out of it. This hatch material that you see along the shoreline is like a riprap slope that will be constructed at 1.5 to 1 to keep the toe of the slope out of the wetland. So by putting stone in, we can have a very steep slope, and we can avoid having to impact the wetland. Moving down, these are not, by the way, sequential. There are some sheets in between here that I'm skipping because there's really nothing, no wetland issues in those sections. This next one is the Dick's Pond area. So here's Dick's Pond. The green represents wetlands around it. This is the detention basin, or constructed stormwater wetland Ross mentioned. So this will be receiving runoff, and the forebay is in this corner. It will then meander down, and there's an overflow in this location that discharges stormwater back to Dick's Pond. This is where we're having some impact. We're going to be causing impact. I'm going to zoom in on this to make it a little bit easier to follow. The edge of the road and the wetland boundary is right here. The edge of existing road is pretty much right here. We are right up against the edge of it in this location. Now bear in mind, a lot of what you see here that's going to be impacted is a Phragmites wetland. It's not a really high quality wetland. Nonetheless, it's a wetland, so we're showing that. So this yellowish tinge area is what we would be impacting permanently. The existing outfall, which is about here, is going to be extended out to here. And as Ross mentioned, it'll be the outlet from that, which is a channel that is pretty occluded with vegetation. There'll be a little bit of dredging in this location, so it'll remain a wetland, but we have to open it up a little bit because the invert of the pipe is so low, it would almost be below grade. So we have to dig it out a little bit so that the water can actually exit the pipe. So this area we are impacting permanently, and this area we're impacting permanently. It's about 730 square feet of permanent impact. To replace that, we've got a mitigation area immediately to the right of it, and this is 975 square feet. So it's a little bit greater than 1-to-1, and it's immediately adjacent to the impact site. Now moving down to the next sheet, this is the next basin that Ross mentioned. This is the mitigation area. You can see we're right next to it. There's a building right here, which is, I believe it's a pump station for the town. So we're right, if you're familiar with that area, there's kind of a little field area right next to it, and that's where this basin would go. So this will be the next detention basin. It'll receive water in this location from the system, and then have an overflow back out to the adjacent wetland in this location. I have closer details I'll go into in a second with these. The next sheet, which is again a couple of sheets down, this is Gibbs Brook as it exists. The pipe that carries it runs in this direction. As David mentioned, it goes underneath where we're going to be putting a new basin. The reason the basin is kind of configured this way is because of the depth of this existing pipe. We can't expose that pipe, but so it's a little shallower here than here, so we can get over it in this location. The basin will have a forebay here, so there'll be flow coming in from this part of the drainage system to the forebay here, and then from this part of the drainage system we'll have a forebay here. They both will come down and together. This is the outlet control structure, and that will dump into this new manhole that will be installed in the existing pipe that Ross mentioned. So that will be the outlet location going back into that existing drainage pipe, or this. Actually, it's conveying a stream. What we are going to be doing here, we're not going to be altering the stream per se, but we are putting a new head wall in. Right now, it's kind of a weirdly shaped head wall at the end of the pipe, and it's got kind of a trash rack on it that's not real formal. I don't know, it seemed to me like somebody just stuck a rack of some sort in front of it. What this will be is a new properly constructed head wall at the end of the pipe. The pipe isn't going to be replaced, it's basically just going to be put at the end of the pipe. And on the face of that will be a proper galvanized trash rack will be hanging on the front of that pipe. That can be taken off to be cleaned and so forth. And then we will have a little bit of rock, a little riprap to stabilize the area behind the wing walls for this new outfall. Oh, by the way, I should point out, let me back up a little. The green lines are the 100-foot buffer zone. The dark blue line is the riverfront line. So this is a little weird shape. This pipe is more than 200 feet long, so normally the riverfront line would truncate perpendicular to the end of the pipe. But this stream turns, and when it gets out of here, and this is 200 feet from where that stream turns, changes direction. So that's why it kind of has a little funny shape to it. And then the lighter blue, I threw this in. This is the 100-foot riverfront area. and then it would become the same as the buffer zone on this side. So this work here, as you can see, is within riverfront. It's all within the existing roadway or the existing shoulders or pavement along the edge of the road that's currently existing. So it's pretty much all the graded riverfront that we'll be working in, and for the most part, it would be remain so when the project's done. The benefit is that it does have a new drainage system that will be put in with new catch basins, deep sump catch basins, and a collection system and treatment system that doesn't currently exist. And then the last outfall location, this I mentioned, was an existing outfall. It drains off to the northern side of the project. It's a fairly large vegetated depression. It's mostly herbaceous growth, not grasses, but forbs and sort of heavier stalk stuff. There is kind of a berm in the back with a notch in it, so it actually is functioning now to support stormwater. Stormwater is being discharged to it. This is an existing outfall now, and we're just going to replace that outfall in that same location. Moving on, going back to the mitigation area, these are some the sheets in the plan set that show the details for construction. This is the grading plan. I didn't color, but this is the wetland boundary, so this is all wetland up in here. And so we'll be grading this down to match that, the existing wetland elevation, bringing in, and actually over dredging it a foot and then bringing back in a foot of wetland soils, and then planting it. And we planted it fairly heavily as well. It's not a very large area, it's under 1,000 square feet, but we put a fair number of plants in there. Actually, more than I would normally do in a basin mitigation area, but since it was so small, it warranted like 10 plants, and that seemed a little too small, so so we put quite a few more in. These are, the next three shots are blow-ups, again, details of the detention basins. As I mentioned, there's a forebay where this is the one that is to the west of Dick's Pond. Dick's Pond is over here. So this is the forebay where the discharge would occur, the water would meander down, and then have an overflow out to Dick's Pond. This shows you a cross-section of the basin. It's got the deep water area for the inlet. Then it's got shallow marsh and deep marsh configurations throughout here. So there are different kinds of plants that go into each of these areas that can handle deeper water conditions and shallower water conditions. These, basically what we're doing is we're creating a marsh here. And, but the marsh is a special kind of marsh. It's designed to treat stormwater rather than be mitigation. So we've been doing a lot of these types of designs lately because they function very well. And in this case, it works very well because we're very close to groundwater. And if we were to create like an extended detention basin, you wouldn't want those to have water in it because you want them to drain down. But we're so close that when we graded this down, we're going to be down in groundwater. So it's never going to drain out. So we figured, well, let's make use of that groundwater and turn it into a constructed wetland. It'll function better. And support the wetland that we're going to construct in there. And then on the other side, again, it's a constructed wetland. This is the drainage system coming in. Here's the forebay. The idea is you create a long circuitous route for the water to have to pass through, so it goes through a lot of vegetation that's bedded in the ground. This is not algae. This would be like pickerelweed or arrow-arum or cattail will probably come in as well. Things like that grow up out of the bottom, out of the bottom of the water area in the ground. And then there's an overflow in this location back into Dick's Pond. Again, this is a cross-section showing the configuration, and that profile is following this line. It's kind of a squiggly little line, but what it does is it gets you through, and so you can kind of see the undulations and the changes in the grade. This is the larger basin. This is the pipe conveying Gibbs Brook underneath it, which goes through the basin. Water will be coming in on this side into one forebay, and on this side into the other forebay. They come together, and the outlet control structure is this square here. That will be then piped into that new manhole into the outlet pipe, or into the stream pipe. And again, this is the cross-section that looks like this. And this is essentially what it would look like, and then here's the outlet control structure. There'll be a low-flow invert, and then the whole top will be graded for an overflow, and that will tie into the pipe, which is the existing pipe. And that's pretty much it. Be happy to answer any questions.
Jim, you got any more, David?
I don't have any more questions.
Sandy?
Come back to me, please.
Joe?
The only concern I got is the engineering right up there, because you're gonna have much more impervious surfaces, so is the drainage definitely gonna be able to handle this?
Yes, obviously the drainage design and the basins were designed with the additional impervious area in consideration.
Okay.
There is,
Because I know a lot of this stuff is gonna actually just replace stuff that's already impervious, but I know there's gonna be some that's gonna be covered up,
right.
some ground and stuff like that.
There is a bit, because we are adding sidewalks on both sides, so there is gonna be a little bit more impervious. It's not necessarily roadway, but it's still impervious, nonetheless. Overall, project-wide, there's an increase of about 2.26 acres
Mhm.
of pavement. That's out of 18, or out of 15.9, or in addition to the 15.9 that are already there. So the total will be about 18 point,
Okay, no, I just wanna make sure you figured in for that extra, because that is a difficult stretch of road there.
yep, it is. It's a wide road.
Yes, it is. All right, I don't have any more questions right yet.
Mary?
That increased elevation, you talked about that, is to eliminate that area that floods at present?
Alyssa?
That was the entire purpose of that.
Alyssa? Mary, you all done? All set. Anybody in the audience want to speak?
Me.
Oh,
You said
you,
you'd come back to me.
You're ignoring me.
You forgot.
I
I'm just
forgot.
about there. I had a chance of getting a hold of a big one, so I cut it down to
Oh, okay.
pages that I wanted to look at, so bear with me while I get my pages right. I noticed that most of the retention area along Dick's Pond, there's 2 retention areas, right? And the other one at the Gibbs Brook are going to be surrounded by trees.
Yep.
So there's nothing inside it, so we're going to have, what, sugar gum or white oak or white pine? Did I get it right?
In the basin itself?
Around the edge of those 3 basins, I think it's, sorry, I had it. It looks like they're just going to be sour gum, red oak, eastern red cedar, and white pine, using English words. So it looks like they're going to be surrounding those 3 retention areas,
Yeah,
right?
correct.
So there'll be nothing inside it,
Well,
even,
inside the basin is gonna be,
whatever grows up.
no, it's gonna be planted. This landscape planting and seeding schedule here.
Yeah, what page is that on? Do you have it?
This is on sheet 102.
Okay.
In the
Yep,
details.
yep,
kind
I
of-
see it. Yep,
And this, each one of the basins has a plant and seed schedule that's down on the sheet somewhere. And you can see, when I've said that we're gonna be placing arrow arum and arrowhead, pickerel weed.
yep,
These are all aquatic plants. They're herbaceous, they're not shrubs or trees, but they can withstand 6 to 18 inches of water, which is why they were selected for these locations. The expectation is that they're gonna have that kind of water depth in there.
and I'm pleased to see you use the blue flag as opposed to the yellow flag iris which is an invasive.
That's
Are
right.
any of these on the possible invasive line? Were you surprised I knew that a yellow flag was invasive? I do water gardens, so I
Okay.
know, I
We
have.
would not use yellow flag.
Wait a minute, there was something else. Bear with me.
The other
I
thing
think I,
that's about these, if you do water gardens, a lot of these have flowers, and they're actually very attractive when they're flowering.
for their short period that they do flower, yes.
But they're just, I think they're great plants myself.
And I noticed no water lilies.
No.
It won't be that deep or anything like that. And so whatever comes up, as you said,
Overtake.
as you see there on all the waters around here. But I would expect the cat and nine tails to come up on their own, They do
may
find-
come in, we don't plant them.
but they do
may
find it.
Get established, but they're native, and unfortunately, they're somewhat invasive, but they are native.
Okay. Now, you mentioned a trash rack will be placed at the input from Gibbs Brook.
Yep.
How often would that be removed and cleaned?
I defer to David on that, because he mentioned that it is cleaned at the beginning of the fish run, is that correct?
Well, you know, prior to the herring run season, the herring officers typically will go by there and make sure that's cleared. They're not
So it's
necessarily,
up to the town to do it?
it's not up to the town, but they do it just in the interest of the herring run. I was gonna make a comment about that in a moment, once you're done.
I'm almost done. Now, how much dewatering will you need to account for as you move across the flatter area between Burger King and Water Whiz, or that's part of the low part, isn't it? Do you expect any dewatering issues? Do you expect to go low enough to do the sidewalks to have an issue with water?
I would expect some dewatering to happen when we're doing our trenching for the pipes, not for the sidewalks or
For
that
the,
type
for the
of-
stormwater pipes?
Yes.
Yeah, they'll be,
so
how deep will they go? It's in the plans, I didn't read it.
in that area, we're trying to keep them relatively shallow, so we're not deep at the Dix Pond outlet.
Okay.
But in general, we have about 4 feet, so probably a 5-foot deep trench. If we run into a little bit of water, the bedding material changes. We use either crushed stone, something that can be compacted in the water. If you start getting a trench full of water, obviously you have to put a pump in there and get it out.
And so there will be accommodation to handle the dewatering pump out if needed, or
Yep.
when needed?
Yep, we have a full list of hazardous material type items in the contract, which includes treatment of water if they find that there have to be water in a hazardous environment or contaminated environment. There's also standard dewatering in the contract as well, and that has to be treated appropriately. They can't just dump it in the Dix Pond. That's all written into the contract.
Now, we do have oversight within 200-foot riverfront, correct? I'm concerned about some of the plantings that are going to be placed on the median strip on the road, which is within our preview. One, I think I mentioned it at the public meeting the other night, and I'll mention it now. I'm very concerned about the planting of trees. They're shade trees, they will grow big, they will have broken limbs, they will have, the leaves come down, they're deciduous, which means more debris on the road, and when you have grasses, they need to be cut in the spring before, just to maintain the grasses. You have your daylilies, they need to be maintained at least twice a year to make them look good. I was just wondering what type of maintenance plan will be available for that type of median planting. Am I out of line?
No?
Just a real quick beginning response, and I'll let Mike or Ross take the rest of that. In the riverfront area, which is this blue line here, there really isn't any landscaping. The median in that location is gonna be too narrow to be landscaped.
Yeah, okay, further up there,
So that, in that location, it won't be landscaped. There will be, we're showing landscaping in some areas in the median. Certainly at the triangle at the
Yep.
beginning. And then there's a couple of areas when, this is not a complete set, but where the median widened out a little bit, and it made, that it would make some sense to put something in there. But there's been some other thoughts on that now. I think they're gonna be investigating that and determining whether or not they're gonna actually put any landscaping in the median.
And as I said at
Corrected
the
some
public
maintenance.
meeting, I was very concerned about the catching of the trash. It wouldn't take much for that planting of the grass, the daylilies, to collect the discarded materials, and then how often are they picked up? Because I'm sure you don't want to have a maintenance vehicle stopping traffic for all the hours it will take to remove the litter and maintain the plants that you have there. I know, not a concern of conservation, but I thought I'd repeat myself.
Understandable. I believe our district maintenance force is doing this, and we're gonna be making some recommendations, from my understanding. The maintenance force is somewhat concerned about maintaining as well.
Yeah, because heaven forbid, I don't know how you're gonna keep it weeded. I mean, it's bad enough now that we had, take a look at the little triangles between roads, that is nothing but weeds and weeds and weeds as you come off 28 onto Tyhonet, Tremont, one of those streets. They had to pave it, they put macadam down because the weeds were so bad, and it just happens, you know? Weeding, it would be a big issue. If all that planting existed, then all those weeds are gonna come up. I think that does me.
Okay. David, you still got comment?
Yeah, I just had a comment to make relative to the maintenance ongoing of the stormwater structures. In the notice of intent, there's some language about ongoing maintenance for the stormwater structures, and typically we would put those sorts of features into the order of conditions so that it's reiterated that those things actually have to happen, you know, and get done. So you're talking about annual maintenance for most of, or all of the structures. And so my question is that Mass Highway that's going to conduct that work?
That would be correct.
Okay.
We've, across the state, we've developed this impaired bondage program with a number of, BMPs that we pull out of our toolbox to use. And, all those BMPs do have some maintenance, so we're aware of that, and that's currently being programmed into our, future needs. These systems are gonna be, all these BMPs are eventually gonna be located via GPS systems, so we can track where they are and when they were done, so our crews will be able to do their maintenance and then update on some tracking system that knows that we can tell it's been done, and we can produce a report saying that these systems, that these BMPs have been maintained. I believe the annual is probably an annual inspection, and then, as needed, I think is really the,
Well, it does talk about annual cleaning of catch basins to remove accumulated sand, sediment, floatable products, or as needed based on use. So it says annually or as needed, so that could potentially be more than annually if they go up and find that this catch basin's loaded up.
catch basins are generally cleaned once a year,
Mhm.
springtime. You'll probably see them out there shortly. We have contractors on board that do that type of work throughout the spring and summer.
Right, okay. So if there's no more questions from the board, I just have a list of recommended conditions that should be in the order, or that I'm recommending be in the order. So first of all, our standard conditions, then the additional conditions that Mass DMF recommended relative to the time of year restrictions, And the other comment they made about the erosion control along Dix Pond, conditions regarding dewatering, our typical dewatering conditions, which it was mentioned that those are probably already written into the contract, but we typically put conditions in relative to dewatering. I would also recommend a condition about identifying the location of that pipe that conveys Gibbs Brook under the chunk of land where the new stormwater BMP is proposed, so that's clearly identified and not somehow driven over accidentally by a big machine. And also to include the conditions regarding the maintenance of the stormwater structures as described in the notice of intent submitted for the long-term maintenance measures. And that's it.
That's it.
Also, in regards to dewatering, this work is also governed by the NIPD's program, and we'll be doing a SWIP because we're doing what we're naming disturbance, and that will also, guide us with our stormwater, not stormwater, flow of water during the projects.
Very good.
Okay. Anybody in the audience have anything to say? You come up to the...
I'm a resident of Jefferson Shores at the moment.
Could you come up to the mic and
Yes.
identify yourself there and speak into the mic, please?
Hi, my name is James Abdo. I'm living in Jefferson Shores at the moment. I'm concerned about the pipe for Gibbs Brook because it must be close to 70 years old and it's constructed out of metal. And as we all know, that river is brackish. There's evidence of decay at the opening, and I think that if they're going to make the project, they should at least, the town should recommend that there be a full survey of the pipe to make sure that it won't have to be replaced in the near future. If you're going to be doing the project now, you might as well deal with that problem, which will become a problem in the not too distant future.
Okay. Anybody want to address that, or?
Sorry. Well, the contractor would definitely be responsible for it. I mean, this is his work site. If it's damaged at all, he would have to replace it. We can certainly, I will discuss with the Mass DOT project manager, putting in the requirement that the contractor video the pipe to verify its condition is acceptable, and potentially put in the replacement of the pipe if it is required by condition.
Okay. All right, anybody else?
Benjamin Hughes, Onset Water Department. Pleasure to meet you, gentlemen. Just a question, or a couple questions. Do you know how close you are to our groundwater overlay district?
No, that is escaping my...
Okay. In case there, and to follow into that, your water quality units that you have listed here, and in case there are any hazardous material, salt or petroleum products or anything like that, you're awfully close to our wells. So I would like you to possibly take that into account, and maybe keep in touch with us as well.
A portion of the roadway does fall within the zone.
It does.
Yeah,
Yes,
it does.
That's what I thought.
It's that portion, Red Brook Road, right?
Mhm. Your water quality units that you have listed here, what are they exactly?
We don't have any water quality units.
Okay, because I have listed, well, on your paperwork, from the entirety of the roadway drainage system will be reconstructed. Structural BMPs, best management practices, will be installed along the corridor. These will include deep sump catch basins, water quality units, and constructed wetlands.
Where's that from?
The meeting the other night in the handout. Mass DOT, public information meeting, February 15th.
That may be an older design that was included. There are no water quality units anymore along the corridor. They've all been replaced with constructed stormwater wetlands.
Okay, so you plan on using wetlands alone?
Yep. Well, constructed wetlands.
Constructed wetlands, right, constructed wetlands. All right. So those are my questions or statements, I guess. And if you could please keep in contact with us and let us know. And you are within the,
Do you have the card?
not on me, no, but I can give you my name,
We do have a
Benjamin.
list of contacts, project stakeholders in the front of the contract documents.
All right,
and
Kevin Sampson is our superintendent.
Yep, he's actually listed in there, I recognize that.
Perfect.
So you're up there with the utilities, but we would add additional information.
Please do. That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you very much.
Okay. Anybody else?
Yeah, I had a second question.
Step up to the...
So my understanding is that Dick's Pond is a great pond and that this project will be removing public access to the pond. Is that something that's been addressed so far?
I didn't think it was public access.
Yeah, there is no public access currently that's being removed. There's a spot that people use to access the pond, but it's not a public access point. It's private land that people sort of just utilize to get to the water. So yes, that is going to be taken up, if you will, by this project, but it wasn't a public access point in the first place.
So is there public access beyond what's being used as public access, or will be public access added?
Can you come up to the...
So is there public access that isn't currently being utilized as public access, or will there have to be public access added?
Yeah, there's no other public access, and there's no proposal to provide that as part of the project.
All right, moving on.
I make a motion, we close the hearing.
Second.
Sandy's motion, seconded by Jim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Further motion,
I
please.
make a motion, we approve the projects. Now, bear with me when I try to remove the, list the standard, our standard order of conditions, the DMF timeframe restriction that was given for the spring migration from March 15th to June 30th, and the fall immigration from 9/1 to 11/15. There'll be no work in the area around Gibbs Brooks, and that additional erosion control measures be installed in the work around Dick's Pond. Correct? That was that one. That was the erosion control. Dewatering measures will be taken as standard for Massachusetts. Good enough? Whatever you listed. whatever.
Dewatering conditions,
Yep.
yeah.
That the pipe under by Gibbs Brooks be identified and marked so it would not be damaged or run over. The maintaining of the stormwater drains on the schedule as provided in the documents, and the existing pipe under Gibbs Brooks be videoed, and replaced if needed. All right?
Yes.
Okay?
Thank you.
I make that motion.
Sandy's motion, seconded by Mary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Right?
Opposed? Abstentions?
That was a tough
Thank you
one.
very much.
Thank you very much.
Good luck.
That was a tough one.
I hope I took the right notes.
Want me to carry that rod down?
Okay.
Such a mess when it's like that.
Sandy, first hearing.
No, first hearing, bear with me.
You can call that one up and we'll
Do
just
you want the
continue it.
small
Yep.
one?
We have a public hearing pursuant to the provisions of the Massachusetts Wetland Protection Act, General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, and the Wareham Wetland Protective Bylaw, Division 6. A public hearing will be held in Room 320, Wareham Multi-Service Center, 48 Marion Road, Wareham, Mass. On Wednesday, February 21st, 2018, at 7:15 PM on the request for determination of applicability for Winship LLC, P.O. Box 75, Mansfield, Mass. 02048, to remove stumps and grade stump holes for property located at Assessor's Map 22, Lot 2, 20 Burgess Point Road.
Is anybody here for that hearing? They've requested a continuance till March 7th.
I make a motion, we continue the hearing until March 7.
Sandy's motion, seconded by Mary. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Thank you. Next.
Steve, do you have paperwork on that?
Um,
Chip,
You mean the application?
Yes.
Yes.
if I could have a copy
Oh, yeah.
before we leave, thank you. Next. Notice of public hearing Wednesday, February 21st, 2018, at 7:15 PM on the notice of intent for Bryant McKay Spencer, care of JC Engineering Inc., 2854 Cranberry Highway, East Wareham, Mass. 02538, to upgrade an existing septic system for property located at Assessor's Map 1A, Lot 22B, 10 Brockton Ave, Onset.
Good evening, Brad Bertolo, JC Engineering.
Okay, David? When you're ready.
Multiple.
We continue to wish,
Friendship until 3/7.
Okay, so this project is at 10 Brockton Ave, which is out on Onset Island. And this project involves a septic upgrade. The project involves upgrading the septic system, which is in the buffer zone, to a coastal bank, a coastal beach, and also within a coastal flood zone. The existing system is to be replaced with a new Title V nitrogen-reducing system. The new system would be further away from the coastal bank than the existing system, but would still be in the buffer zone due to the size constraints of the lot and due to the location of existing wells around this particular lot. The new leach field would be approximately 73 feet from the edge of the wetland. I did have a question in terms of what type of equipment would be used to install this system and how would the equipment access the site. I was under the understanding that this also went before the Board of Health earlier. Is that the case?
Correct, and it was approved.
Okay. Hay bales are proposed between the work and the resource areas. I would recommend that the hay bale line be wrapped around the project more on the Onset Bay side, because it kind of stops short and doesn't sort of cover that side of the project as much as it should, in my opinion, so I would ask for that to be changed. We do have a DEP file number for the project, so I would recommend the approval of the project with the standard conditions plus the added conditions for the hay bale line to be extended on the Onset Bay side of the project. And as I said, just a quick question about the equipment and how it's going to get there.
Well, obviously, it's not much access to this property, so everything was designed to use plastic tank so that it's not heavy to carry. I think they're going to look at possibly using a very small, I think they're called a dingo, to maybe use machine, but a lot of this is going to be done by hand. That's what.
It's a lot of digging.
Yeah, it's what's, I asked, it's going to be a lot of work,
Yeah.
labor
Okay.
intensive.
So you don't envision them trying to barge a machine over there? No?
No.
Okay, that's all I was curious about. No other questions?
Okay, Jim?
No questions.
Sandy?
I have nothing, thank you.
Joe?
no questions.
Mary?
No question.
Audience?
I make a motion, we close the hearing.
Sandy's motion, Jim's second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Next.
I make a motion, we approve the project with the normal standard conditions, plus the extension of the hay bale to be between the area of work and Onset Bay. Is that good enough?
Yes.
Sand,
Kind of on the other side, it's sort of, there's two spots where really it could be added to somewhat, if you can see the way it's shown.
Yep.
So yes,
Something between the work site and Onset Bay.
yes.
Yeah.
Sandy's motion, Mary's second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, Sandy, please.
Yep.
Well, originally, but some of them have been upgraded, so you've got some newer
Finally,
homes on stilts, and then you've got
Yeah,
some cottages
it's your
that
turn
look like
now.
they haven't been touched in 200 years.
Notice of public hearing Wednesday, February 21st, 2018, at 7:15 PM on the notice of intent for Roseanne Beck in care of McKinnon and Keys Engineering, 23 Looks Mill Lane,
Thank you.
Rochester, Mass. 02770, to repair, upgrade existing patio for property located Assessor's Map 76, Lot W2, 2 Carmichael Way, West Wareham.
One, I got to see.
Hey, if you can identify yourself for the record, I know we know who you are, but
know, I'm a little anxious with my puppy at home. For the record, I'm Sandy Keys of McKinnon and Keys Engineering.
Just in the back.
thank you. David will highlight. We'll continue from there. Got all the cards up there. No, that's all right. I got an idea now. David, I haven't looked at that yet.
So this project site is at 2 Carmichael Way, and the project involves the construction of a patio in the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetland. A 15 by 23-foot patio is proposed to be constructed approximately 30 feet from the edge of the wetland. Work had already commenced at this site in terms of the excavation for the patio to create a level area, and once that was discovered, it was pointed out that the applicant needed to file for the work before it was installed. So that's why we're here at this point. The patio is to be a brick paver patio. Hay bales are proposed between the work and the resource area. The question I had was, is the patio going to be a pervious material in terms of a pervious type of a paver? I would recommend that something of that nature be used if possible for the patio. And also would recommend that the disturbed area that's within the 30-foot no activity zone where the patio is not going to be constructed into be restored, that stretch between, you know, the existing and where the patio is. We did not get a DEP number for this project. I don't know if you've gotten anything on that, but we have not gotten that. So I don't have a problem with the project, generally speaking, but at this point, I'd have to recommend a continuance for the DEP file number.
And that's perfectly okay. And what we have here, I did give you the site plan where we had the septic system.
Yeah.
To show you sort of where on that lot that this will be placed. And we swung a 30-foot radius line from BVW number 2 that was set by Sabatier for our original project. And that will fall within the confines of the patio. And I do believe she's going to use regular paver bricks, but with bluestone in between. So if you want to make a suggestion with that, I'm sure our client would be very willing to listen.
Yeah, I just would think that you'd want to try to reduce new impervious area on the site, that's all, so.
Yeah, it's all sand too,
Yeah.
so very well drained. And we're going to use a standard hay bale barrier and silk fence along that line to confine the limits of construction too.
Okay. Questions, Jim? No. Sandy?
It's not uncommon for the area between the pavers to grow weeds.
Yes.
I am going to recommend that no chemicals be used at that site, that all weed removal be manual.
Absolutely. The bluestone that you use, the crushed stone in between, should prohibit that, but we'll keep an eye on that, because it looks
That doesn't
terrible
do it,
too.
But it helps a lot.
It helps, but it's not
I just don't want
foolproof.
them out there with spray bottles and
No, no, no.
Roundup.
Roundup.
Oh, good God, no.
Thank you.
No Monsanto.
Joe?
I have no questions.
Mary?
No question.
Public. I have to ask. There's empty chairs. Okay.
Nope.
Um,
Nothing to say, for or against?
I don't see a problem with this project. This became because of a neighbor, so I'm just here to support, that's all.
Okay. I make a motion, we continue, do you want to continue until we have,
Till March 7th, we should have it by then.
I would think so. It's highly unusual that it has taken this long, or at least it's been my experience from the DEP, but
I make a motion, we continue until March 7th, waiting for DEP?
DEP
Yes.
number.
DEP number.
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you want me back at that next meeting?
Well, again, I always say that I can never recommend that you don't show up, because if an abutter shows up at the next meeting and has some question or comment, and we've told you not to come, and then we have to continue it again, you're gonna say, what happened, you know?
Okay.
But it will
So
be a continued hearing, so we would start with you, the continued hearings first thing.
typically.
Super.
Yeah, you'll be out of here earlier.
Thank you. As I say, I have an anxious puppy at home. I've left her by herself, and I'm
Yeah.
hoping I don't return to destruction.
Thank you, have a good night.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
Sandy's motion, Mary's second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, thank you.
Okay, good to see you all again.
Have a good night.
Aye.
Good
You
one.
too.
Here you go, Sandy, that's what you were asking for.
Thank you.
Certificate of compliance for,
Nope. Steve,
oh, I didn't even see that one.
and it's going to be continued, so we
Yeah.
need to make a motion.
Okay, Steve Karademus, hearing, looking out there, there's nobody here for
I
that.
make a motion, we continue the hearing until March 7.
Second.
Sandy's motion, seconded by Jim. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Got to give that side of the room, too. Okay, now, we also, certificate of compliance for Peter Franklin. 70
I did not have a chance to get to that site to verify, so I would like to hold off on that until the next meeting.
Okay. Not yet. Oh, for the record, Elisa left at 7:35 for personal problem. Anything else for the board, from the board? Good of the board? What's going on with school? Are we going together?
Well, I guess there's, are you going to?
I did put my name in to go, so I'm planning on it.
You'll go up from your home. I mean, there's 3 of us going. It's my intention to use EV, but we're trying to verify whether or not it has the range for 160 miles to Holy Cross and back.
Yeah, you don't want to be hiking it back from there.
No, I'll bring my generator.
Well, they've looked online and cannot find a charging station at Holy Cross, but I will be making a phone call before we leave on the 3rd to make sure, to see if there is if not, you get to sit in my back seat and watch me stick shift all the way up to
I've been there
Worcester.
before. Well,
Yeah,
I
but that
was
was
on
the
the
Mini
side
Cooper.
seat.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you
that
were
was
in
the Mini Cooper.
This one's a little bigger. This one's got 4 doors.
Wow.
It's got an extra gear.
Yes. So I make a motion, we adjourn.
All right, Sandy's motion,
Second that.
seconded by Jim and Joe. All those in favor? Opposed, abstentions? Good night. Thank you.